I'm Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact focused on personal growth, my Knowledge Workbook series and Creative Healing course can help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about, was I just her rebound? You know, one of the things that could be a real wake-up call for us after a breakup is how much we may or may not have been a significant part of another person's life. At the time of the breakup, we could really feel discarded and minimized and like we weren't very important to them, especially if we think they weren't over somebody else previously. One of the things we really encourage you to do is to get somebody's story. Know who they are. Know how they're going to show up. Know their attachment issues before you get attached to them. Because if you don't, you're taking a big risk. You're basically attaching to a stranger. You're giving your heart to a stranger, and you could wind up with a broken heart because of it. So you really want to take your time and get to know somebody and be curious about who they are and what their story is. Many of the people that we meet are not truly over an ex. So you want to find out when that last breakup was, what happened, how they feel about it now. You don't have to really grill the person, but you really want to have a better idea. Because if you don't, and they're not over somebody when they start dating you, you may be the one that winds up with a broken heart. Sometimes those exes come back into the picture. Somebody that they say, oh, I would never date that person again. And then you find out they're dating that person again. And then you feel like, was I just a rebound? Did I even matter to this person? Do they think about me? Is this breakup easy for them now because they're really back with the person they wanted to be with? A lot of questions can come up. And we certainly can't ignore the possibility of somebody not truly being over an ex. Today, I've got an email coaching with somebody that had quite a bit going on in this situation. Try and keep track of the timeline. They kind of lay out the timeline a bit here, but this is an interesting coaching. I think it will be helpful for many of you guys, especially if you wonder if there was somebody lingering in the background. They said, hi, Craig. I've been a long-time follower of your channel. Your work has helped me reflect deeply, and I want to share the story of a relationship I've been tied up in since 2021. I'm in my mid-30s, and the woman that I was dating is a little bit older than me. It's been a chapter of highs and lows, friendship and confusion. This was my most meaningful relationship as an adult. Really my first true heartbreak. She's had more experience overall, described 3 quote-unquote true heartbreaks, yet remains unmarried. Currently, to my knowledge, we were both currently single, although we both had other people on our radars. So this is how it began in 2021 through early 2022. We met through the end of the pandemic. At first it was casual. I thought she was cute, but a bit much, so I didn't pursue her. A few months later, she started a group chat with mutual friends, including me, and that's where our friendship began. By the spring, we started dating. The chemistry was real. Daily and nightly FaceTimes, playful banter, her singing to me over the phone, things felt effortless and exciting. Our friend saw a spark. She later admitted she wasn't completely over her ex. I tried to stay grounded, but my anxious side showed when communication slowed. When I finally asked to make things official, she said she didn't feel the butterflies she thought she should. Okay, so if she still has lingering feelings for someone else and your interest level is higher, that could make her be like, I'm not sure about this. I'm still not over this other person. Now it feels like pressure. We broke up that summer. So it sounds like they were together for about 4 months around that time. He describes the next part as back and forth friendship from late 2022 through 2024. Even after the breakup, we stayed in touch. Sometimes she reached out, more often I did. No surprise there, right? Because he really wasn't over this situation. He wasn't over her, so he keeps reaching out. Calls got shorter, replies slower, yet we still had a real connection. We'd watch TV shows together, FaceTime every episode. She'd check on my career, and she even saved the anniversary of my mom's passing to reach out. I recently found out that her ex re-entered the picture on and off during 2023. So remember, I said this was a back and forth friendship from late 2022 to 2024. In 2023, she invited me last minute to her father and stepmother's home, my first time meeting her family. It was simple but meaningful. Later that fall, I took her as my date to a wedding, our last unofficial date before she pulled away again. So I wonder if that's when the ex came back, around that time. By summer, after another canceled plan, tensions peaked. She said, "We can't be friends." And I agreed to step back. Okay, so why would she say, "We can't be friends" out of nowhere? Did you ask any follow-up questions? I would have said, okay, is there something more you could tell me? Like, we've been friends, talking for a couple of years here. Like, why all of a sudden now? Months later, after a tragedy at her workplace, I checked on her. There were small signs that she hadn't fully detached, and that tragedy reopened friendly communication. She thrives on novelty, very warm and enthusiastic early on, but tends to withdraw when disappointed. Even with the ex she said she truly loved, she admitted to being an avoidant and a brat when asked to reciprocate effort, which ultimately sabotaged that relationship. Okay, that's big, right? Because this is something that we often see avoidants do. They don't want to reciprocate at the same level. They don't want to give as much as they get. That is very common for a lot of avoidants to do that. And so she knows she is an avoidant because she said it herself, and she doesn't want to make as much effort as her partners do. And this is to the ex that she was really attached to, according to what he said here. Faith is central for both of us. We shared the same beliefs, including no premarital sex. I was raised in the faith while she joined in her 20s after several past relationships. Okay, so it sounds like she probably had hooked up with other people and then decided she didn't want to do that anymore. And intimacy does come up often and is central in a lot of breakups. As a matter of fact, I talked to a guy just a few hours ago that he told his girlfriend at the time, he no longer wanted to be intimate with her until they got married. And then a lot of things started happening, but ultimately it led to the demise of that relationship because her attraction level was still high. She still wanted to be intimate with him, and she really didn't want the breakup. But ultimately, I think she was just feeling like, and she was in her early 20s, I can't do this relationship anymore without intimacy. She didn't say that because I think she was maybe too embarrassed or ashamed to say that, but it seemed like the major issue to me, especially because her attraction was still high and she was saying she didn't want to break up and things like that. The difference shaped how we view connection. She often chases emotional highs while I value steadiness and depth. I became her quote-unquote safe zone, dependable, spiritually aligned, but not the thrill she was used to. He describes this as the final chapter of 2025. We reconnected early this year through memes and light texting. Then crossed paths at a convention in the summer. Things were friendly again, but a few months later, we had a 2.5-hour call that became our last conversation. She began, tearful, apologized if she ever led me on, and said she prayed before calling. Okay, so that tells me she probably knew she was leading you on and keeping you strung along in that 2022 or late 2023 to 24 period. She admitted that an unplanned visit from her ex had stirred emotions. He had stopped by to tell her he was dating someone else, yet still hugged up on her. She insisted she'd never take him back, but the visit clearly affected her, and a few things stood out. Based on her words and timeline, I was likely Rebound. She said there was no overlap, and I believe she believes that, but I understand what that means emotionally. She praised my character. You'd make a great husband and great spiritual head. You're going to make somebody very happy. Oof. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear, you're going to make someone else so happy. So happy. They love you. I despise you and can't stand to look at you, but they would love you. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but it feels like that. It's like, oh, no, that is the last thing you want to hear is, oh, you're going to be so great for somebody else. Just so wonderful. If I'm so great and wonderful, why don't you want to be with me? Oh, I like dirtbags. That's pretty much the main reason. Which may be true in this case. Yet she admitted she didn't feel strongly enough and that by now she should have if it were going to happen. Again, I think that you had put pressure on her and this other guy barely gave her any interest and she was more drawn to that guy, the one that was more of a challenge, the one that wasn't smothering her. She was probably avoidant, right? Oh yeah, she was avoidant. She said that earlier. At the end, she told me she was willing to do whatever I needed to do to move on, even if it meant blocking or being blocked. After reflecting, I chose to close the chapter. I wrote a heartfelt farewell letter and separately sent a symbolic gift box. I know. She confirmed the receipt and thanked me politely, but with distance. Guys, we fantasize about this. Oh, if I send this letter, if I send this box of goodies, she's going to love it. No, don't do it. If I thought it was effective, I would tell you to do it. But the reason I'm telling you not to do it is because time and time, what I see is something like what he got here. She confirmed the receipt and thanked me politely, but with distance. I feel mostly relieved, though a small part wonders if I burned a bridge. I'm focusing on faith, fitness, and new opportunities, but I'd value your insight on how to structure no contact properly. Our longest stretch before was 2.5 months. What signs would justify re-engagement? Well, I hope you don't mean reaching out to her. So I would not re-engage. You want her to engage with you. How to avoid limbo without losing hope. My goal is to move forward with dignity and peace, open to whatever comes next. All right, so I think she wasn't still over that ex when he came back around. She was still drawn to him, and she probably feels more drawn to him because he wasn't smothering her or putting pressure on her. Avoidance, hate, pressure. They want to run away, and it's certainly not fair because you're looking for somebody who can reciprocate in a relationship. But if you want to date an avoidant, you have to understand them. Don't do it unless you're willing to understand and sacrifice some of the things you'll have to do in order to keep them happy. Because if you don't, they're probably going to leave. Is that fair? No. Should you be with somebody like that? That is up to you. That's a personal decision. Nobody that we date is going to be perfect. They're all going to have issues. And so you're going to have to choose the person that you're with and the issues that they bring to the table. The reality is, if you're not secure, you're not going to keep somebody that's secure. Don't lie to yourself because it's just not going to happen. If you don't really work on your issues and you do meet somebody who's secure, they're going to see right through your issues and they're going to next you, okay? Because they want somebody who is secure also. You may think you're secure, but because a lot of times it feels easy to be secure. Like a lot of times we're like, oh, I'm secure. I'm handling things fine most of the time. What you don't understand is that it's in those really challenging moments that is when you're tested. That's when it shows if you're really secure or not. When somebody's pulling away or somebody's smothering you, and the struggles that come from those two extremes, really, that is what shows how secure or insecure you really are. But for the majority of many relationships, you may feel like, oh, I'm pretty secure. It's when you're tested that you really find it within yourself. And secure people are going to kind of see that in you. They're going to see who's worked through their issues and who hasn't. So I'm always telling you guys, do the work, do the work, do the work. And what do you guys do? You watch no contact videos. You're obsessed with no contact videos. The views on my videos teaching you how to be secure and work through your attachment issues are often very low. And some of you guys wind up learning the hard way, getting your ex back and losing them again before you really get motivated. I try and tell you what's going to happen. Only you can do that work. I can just keep telling you and showing you. But in this situation, I think had he not been so smothering or putting pressure on her, she may have been more likely to give him what she was wanting at her own speed, at her own time. We don't know much about this other guy and how much of a rebound she is. We don't have a lot of information there. But I think she felt guilty that she didn't think she could give you what you were looking for. And that's why she ultimately walked away. And maybe in her mind, she was more interested to see where it would go with this other guy. Now, remember, the other guy is in a relationship, if it's still the same ex, right? I'm not sure. He didn't say if it was the same ex. Let's just assume that it is. And that ex is in a relationship now. So he's unavailable. And that probably makes her more drawn to it, being avoidant the way that she is. It's hard to say how much of a rebound you were here, because a lot of this was also a friendship. And you didn't really do what we teach, where we say, walk away, don't be friends with an ex. You were friends with her for quite a while after the breakup. And what I would have done is just say, look, just give me a call if you'd like to get together, if you change your mind and want to see where things go. And I wouldn't put any pressure on the situation and allow her to come back at her own speed. You didn't do that. You sent a handwritten letter. You sent her a gift box. I'm not going to get into all the stuff that was in there, but it was like little things that were kind of cutesy. And those things only work in the movies, unfortunately. So you didn't really stick with a lot of the strategies that we teach. Leave her alone. Allow her to reach out to you. If she does, try and set something up where you're hanging out and having fun and seeing if you can spark up chemistry again. But don't over pursue this. Don't re-engage her. She needs to come to you. And if she does, you got to see if she's really going to be lined up with what you're looking for, because she's avoidant and she may not be able to give you what you need. Only you can figure that out for yourself as you work through your own attachment issues. But I do think she cared about you, at least in a caring friendship kind of way. But I think that your behavior was turning her off. And so that's why she was saying she wasn't feeling things and the butterflies weren't there, things like that. We have to do certain behaviors to create attraction, and certain things turn people off. And unfortunately, he was doing those things that were turning her off. So you guys got to learn your lesson. And when it's challenging, that's when you have to really step up to the plate. I suggest you look at my creative healing course and my workbooks. They can really help you understand these things and have emotional self-control when someone comes back. If you want to get my help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Zoom calls. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth, and I will talk with you soon.